Hello everyone, good to see you again. We're going to talk today about Plato, who lived from 428 to 348 BC. He was the student of Socrates, as we talked about, and he also in turn is the teacher of Aristotle. Aristotle would study at Plato's Academy, the first European-style school. Aristotle studied many subjects there for 19 years. But first we want to talk about Plato with relation to this empiricism versus rationalism dichotomy that you thought about. Empiricism is the idea that all knowledge comes from experience. Even the word itself, empiria, means experience. So it usually means, when we get to John Locke and contemporary empiricists, it means sense experience. So I get knowledge with my five senses. I had no knowledge coming into this life, no innate ideas, and so we're like a blank slate is the metaphor that John Locke will use. Plato, by contrast, is not an empiricist. He thinks knowledge taken through the senses can be faulty. Descartes will say the same thing later. Now, Plato is a rationalist and believes that there are innate ideas, that we have these ideas of perfect justice, perfect goodness, perfect beauty that we take with us from a previous life through a process he calls anamnesis, or recollection. But in this case, he's on the side of that there are objective truths, that they're necessary truths, and not leaning towards empirical knowledge, but rationalism, which is the idea that reason is the faculty that's foremost in the acquisition of knowledge. Now Plato, right after this distinction, you're to think about his definition of knowledge, and it's a definition of knowledge that still works. The idea is that if you know something, to know X means you have a belief about X, the belief is true, and you can justify that belief. And so let's say you think that there are 9 planets, something we've been told since we were kids. Well, around 2006, one of the planets, Pluto, was demoted and was no longer a member of planethood. It's a dwarf planet now, and so there are just 8. But even if you said there were 8 and were right, but didn't know the reason, so you had a belief that was true, and so you fulfilled 2 of the requirements, a true belief, but you didn't have knowledge, this would be, Plato would say that would be fall short of his definition. You have to be able to give an account of why Plato is right about this, and so Plato's idea is that the account that you give must be part of the concept of a planet. So Pluto, as it turns out, does revolve around the sun, so it has one of the 3 requirements of planethood. The second is that it has pulled itself into a sphere, so it has the gravitational pull to be a sphere. But it hasn't cleared out its orbit of other objects. It's just a fraction of the size of the objects in its orbit, as opposed to the other planets. So, due to an astronomers' meeting in 2006, Pluto was demoted to dwarf planet, and there's no longer one now. So this is the definition that of knowledge would require that you had the right belief about it, and that it would be true, and then you'd have to be able to justify it. Until I saw this video pertaining to it, and a video that I'll put up, didn't know that. I just had the idea that that there were 8 planets. I'd heard, and my belief was in fact true, but I couldn't justify it until I learned the astronomical reasons for it. You can take this same definition of knowledge with Plato and turn it into, use it for his divided line. Plato has these 4 ideas pertaining to the divided line. There are 4 levels of being, you can call them, which are images, objects, mathematical/scientific formulas, and the forms of the highest reality. And then you have 4 corresponding levels of knowing. Imaging, sensing, knowing scientifically, and then this kind of intuition, highest kind of intuition of the forms. So this is his metaphysical and epistemological affair. It really, Socrates apparently was drawing using a stick to draw in the sand, and likened knowledge to these 4 levels. Well, go back to the planet again. You can see an image or a photograph of a planet in outer space, and Plato would think that that's very low-level knowledge, like looking in the mirror or seeing a reflection in a pond. An image is ontologically dependent upon the object that it's an image of. So it's the lowest level kind of reality that there is. But then there's the planet itself, which is an object known by the senses. That would be the second level up, so images being the lowest level, and the second is the object itself. But even when you see the object, or if you could touch the object, you still wouldn't know it in Plato's idea of knowing. You would have to have a scientific understanding of it, or a scientific formula. Sort of like saying you don't know a right triangle until you know that its characteristics are that it's each angle is equal 180 degrees, plus it's governed by Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So you wouldn't know whether it's a planet or not until it had the three requirements that we just described. That the three requirements that Pluto had, only two of which, and therefore was demoted from planet to dwarf planet. So scientists have this level of knowing that ordinary perceivers using their senses don't know. There's Plato's rationalism saying that you know with reason and scientifically, mathematically, more than you know with your senses. This is something that will be picked up by Descartes and other rationalists too. Then you have the hardest to understand level, or the fourth level, the forms. The forms are eternal, immutable essences, Plato says. And they are not of this world. They are outside of space and time. But they are perfections. And so any planet that you knew at the third level of reality, either know it scientifically or mathematically, still, he says, participates in this perfection known as the form. So everything of this world is an inferior copy of the things in the world of forms. And you can't contact the forms with ordinary reason or sensing. You had to have known them, he says, from a previous existence. But his proof is what we might call a transcendental proof, that they do exist, even though they're not observable with the senses. And again, they are eternal, meaning outside of time, immutable, unchanging, and essences. They have no material nature to them. But how does he prove that you do in fact know them? Well, he raises three examples in his famous book, The Republic. He talks about perfect beauty, perfect justice, and perfect equality. You've not seen perfect beauty in this life, he would say. You might have seen a beautiful tree, a beautiful painting, but not perfect beauty, yet you still have the idea of it. Which Plato would ask, where did you get the idea from? Your soul or mind must have contacted it in a prior existence for the idea to be retained in you. The second thing he says about perfect equality, Plato says you haven't seen two things that are perfectly equal in this life. You can measure two objects and they may be just about equal, but differ by 1/64th of an inch or something of that sort. But we have an idea of perfect equality, and he says that idea, though it didn't come from this world, had to have come then from the world of forms. Forms he sometimes called ideas, usually with a capital I, so they're perfections. And then the same thing with perfect justice. You can read about a just person or a person who lived a just or good life, but they're not perfectly just. Again, though, Plato says you have the idea of perfect justice, you didn't get it then from this life. You didn't sense someone who, as you read about someone who is perfectly just, whether it's Mother Teresa or some other being, they fall short of perfect justice, yet you still have the idea. Where did you get the idea from? It must have come from the world of forms. So you can, with all, Plato sees all of reality through these four levels. The four levels of being, or metaphysics, or ontology, same thing. And then the four levels of knowing, and that's what the divided line is about. So we'll have occasion to talk more about this, but I hope this will get you started in a discussion of Plato's metaphysics, and so we'll talk soon about that. Thank you. Bye-bye.